When a traveller in the north-central Massachusetts takes the wrong fork at the junction of the Halesbury Pike, just beyond the Inn's Corners, he comes upon a lonely and curious country. The ground gets higher, and the rear boarded stone walls press closer and closer against the ruts of the dusty curving road. The trees of the frequent forest belts seem too large, and the wild weeds, brambles, and grasses attain a luxuriance not often found in settled regions. At the same time, the planted fields appear singularly few and barren, while the sparsely scattered houses wear an surprisingly uniform aspect of age, squalor, and dilapidation. Without knowing why, one hesitates to ask directions from the gnarled, solitary figures spied now and then on crumbling doorsteps or on the sloping rock-strewn meadows. Those figures are so silent and furtive that one feels somehow confronted by forbidden things with which it would be better to have nothing to do. When a rise in the road brings the mountains in view above the deep woods, the feeling of strange uneasiness is increased. The summits are too rounded and symmetrical to give a sense of comfort and naturalness, and sometimes the sky silhouettes with special clearness the queer circles of tall stone pillars with which most of them are crowned. Gorges and ravines of problematical depth intersect the way, and the crude wooden bridges always seem of dubious safety. When the road dips again, there are stretches of marshland that one instinctively dislikes, and indeed almost fears at evening, when unseen whippoorwills chatter and the fireflies come out in abnormal profusion to dance to the raucous, creepily insistent rhythms of stridently piping bullfrogs. The thin, shining line of Miskatonic upper reaches has an oddly serpent-like suggestion as it winds close to the feet of the doomed hills among which it rises. As the hills draw near, one heeds their wooded sides more than their stone-crowded tops. Those sides loom up so darkly and precipitously that one wishes they would keep their distance. But there is no road by which to escape them. Across a covered bridge, one sees a small village, huddled between the stream and the vertical slope of round mountain, and wonders at the cluster of rotting gambrel roofs bespeaking an earlier architectural period than that of the neighboring region. It is not reassuring to see, on a closer glance, that most of the houses are deserted and falling to ruin, and that the broken stapled church now harbors the one slovenly mercantile establishment of the hamlet. One dreads the tenebrous tunnel of the bridge, yet there is no way to avoid it. Once across, it is hard to prevent the impression of a faint, malign odor about the village street, and of the massed mold and decay of centuries. It is always a relief to get clear of the place, and to follow the narrow road around the base of the hills, and across the level country beyond till it rejoins the Halesbury Pike. Afterward, one sometimes learns that one has been through Dunwich. Outsiders visit Dunwich as seldom as possible, and since a certain season of horror all the signboards pointing toward it have been taken down. The scenery, judged by any ordinary aesthetic canon, is more than commonly beautiful. Yet there is no influx of artists or summer tourists. 2 centuries ago, when talk of witch blood, Satan worshipping, and strange foreign presences was not laughed out, It was the custom to give reasons for avoiding the locality. In our sensible age, since the Dunwich horror of 1928 was hushed up by those who had the town's and the world's welfare at heart. People shun it without knowing exactly why. Perhaps one reason, though it cannot apply to uninformed strangers, is that the natives are now repellently decadent, having gone far along that path of retrogression so common in many New England backwaters. They have come to form a race by themselves, with a well-defined mental and physical stigma of degeneracy and inbreeding. The average of their intelligence is awfully low, whilst their annals reek of overt viciousness and of off-Eden murders, incests, and deeds of almost unnamed violence and perversity. The old gentry, representing the 2 or 3 Armagiras families which came from Salon in 1692, have kept somewhat above the general level of decay, though many branches are sunk into the sordid populace so deeply that only their names remain as a key to the origin they disgrace. Some of the Wateleys and bishops still send their eldest sons to Harvard and Miskatonic, though those sons seldom return to the mouldering gambrel roofs under which they and their ancestors were born. No one, even those who have the facts concerning the recent horrors, can say just what it is the matter with Dunwich, though old legends speak of unhallowed rites and conclaves of the Indians, amidst which they called forbidden shapes of shadow out of the great rounded hills, and make wild orgiastic prayers that were answered by loud cracklings and rumblings from the ground below. In 1747, the Reverend Abijah Audley, newly come to the Congregational Church at Dunwich village, preached a memorable sermon on the close presence of Satan and its imps, in which he said, "It must be allowed that these blasphemies of an infernal train of demons are matters of too common knowledge to be denied. The cursed voices of Azazel, and Bezriel, and Beelzebub, and Belial, being heard now from under the ground by above a score of credible witnesses now living. I myself did not more than a fortnight ago catch a very plain discourse of evil powers in the hill behind my house, herein there were a rattling and rowling, groaning, screeching, and hissing, such as no things of this earth could have raised up, and which misdeeds have come from those who caves that only black magic can discover, and only the devil unlock." Mr. Oley disappeared soon after delivering this sermon, but the text, printed in Springfield, is still extant. Noises in the hills continue to be reported from year to year, and still form a puzzle to geologists and physiographers. Other traditions fell of our other near the hill crowning circles of stone pillars, and of rushing airy presences to be heard faintly at certain hours from stated points at the bottom of the great ravines, while still others try to explain the devil's Upgard, a bleak, blasted hillside where no tree, shrub, or grass blade will grow. Then, too, the natives are mortally afraid of the numerous whippoorwills, which grows vocal on warm nights. It is vowed that the birds are psychopomps, lying in wait for the souls of the dying, and that they time their eerie cries in unison with the sufferer's strangling breath. If they can catch the fleeing soul when it leaves the body, they instantly flutter away, shittering in diabolical laughter. But if they fail, they subside gradually into a disappointing silence. These tales, of course, are obsolete and ridiculous, because they come down from very old times. Dunwich is indeed ridiculously old, older by far than any of the communities within 30 miles of it. South of the village, one may still spy the cellar walls and the chimney of the ancient bishop house, which was built before 1700, whilst the ruins of the mill at the falls, built in 1806, formed the most modern piece of architecture to be seen. Industry did not flourish here, and the 19th century factory movement proved short-lived. Oldest of all are the great rings of rough-hewn stone columns on the hilltops, but these are generally attributed to the Indians than to the settlers. Deposits of skulls and bones, found within the circles and around the sizable table-like rock on Sentinel Hill, sustained the popular belief that such spots were once burial places of the Pocutons, even though many ethnologists, disregarding the absurd improbability of such a theory, persist in believing the remains Caucasian.